we're gonna call the meeting to order, and I would ask Connor to take the roll.
Chair Sharp,
Here.
Commissioner Hubrights,
Here.
Commissioner Lieben,
Here.
Commissioner Western,
Present.
Mark, we didn't hear you.
Really?
I hear you, Mark.
Present.
Still can't hear you,
Hello?
although we know you're there because we can see you.
Hmm.
Okay, all right. You're counted present. Changing some wires here.
It sounds like the other individuals in the meeting can hear Mark, and it's us that
It's
cannot
just
hear.
us that cannot hear Mark. Oh, that's interesting.
That is the report I'm getting from.
We're hearing,
Stephanie.
Mark, that other people can hear you, but just we cannot hear you.
Well, that is,
Now we can hear you.
I got nothing.
Now it's magic.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. I'm sorry about all that.
I don't think it was your fault. Okay, I think you still need to call on Lisa.
and Commissioner Edison Smith.
Here.
Thank you. I'll just note that everyone is present and we can see and hear everyone. I want to especially thank Rebecca and Logan for getting this meeting ready in such quick order because as we all know, it's been less than 2 weeks since our last meeting, and that's a really quick turnaround. And there's a lot of preparation in getting all this stuff ready. And also thanks to Faith and Connor and Ashley too, who's not on the screen yet. We're going to move on to the agenda additions. I'm going to tell you that we are changing it a little bit. There's going to be no budget update. We're going to wait till Addie gets back. There haven't been any major changes or anything, anything big to report. So we're just going to wait until Addie gets back for our budget update. But are there any other additions to the agenda from anyone? Okay. Hearing none, moving on to the public comment period. We have had no requests for public comments. So, and we haven't heard from any since we put out the agenda either. So, okay. So we have no public comments for this meeting. Approval of the minutes from our July 9th meeting. I would open it for discussion or entertain a motion for approval.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lisa. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are approved. Okay, the next is the election of a vice chair. We've actually gone the last 2 weeks without a vice chair since Ron Goodman was off the commission and Lisa came on to the commission. So we do need to have a discussion and hopefully an election of a vice chair today. I would open it up for discussion or comments.
Madam Chair, for a motion, I move that the Honorable Jared Hubrights be seated as the Vice Chair of the North Dakota Ethics Commission. To speak in favor of this, Commissioner Hubrights has been on the commission since December, and he has shown leadership initiative and a dedication to try to work through by comparing North Dakota Ethics Commission issues to other ethics commissions around the United States. I think that Commissioner Hubrights shows great leadership, and it is my privilege to move his seating for this position. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Western. Is there a second for that motion?
Madam Chair, I will second that nomination, and in my short time here, I concur with what Commissioner Western said.
Thank you, Commissioner Laban. I also concur with everything that Commissioner Western just said. And I feel like Jared and I have worked together a little bit, and it's all been just exceptionally positive and good. And I think Commissioner Hubrights is perfect for the vice chair position. Are there any other comments? If not, I will ask Connor to take a roll.
Chair Sharp,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieben,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Aye.
Commissioner Edison Smith.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion has passed, and congratulations, Commissioner Hubrights. Moving on to the operations report. Rebecca, I think you're the one who's going to jump in there.
I believe so, Chair Sharp. Thank you. So as we already discussed, we're going to wait on the budget update until Addie's back in the office in August. So we're going to move on to the filing and case management report. So this, you will notice, I'm going to pull it up so we can share it with the public. This looks different than we have done in the past. This is a Give me 1 second to share it. So this looks different than the case management report that we've done in the past for the commission. Typically, what has been done in the past is we have just showed how many filings came in the last month. This is specifically a bigger total. We can see this all the way back from 2019 to 2026. This is a chart that was included in the commission's annual report from last year, which we're coming up on annual report season. But I just wanted to direct the commission's attention to 2026. You will notice that in 2026, we received a total of 38 complaints. We have 16 of them pending, and we have closed 22. I do want to then point out that how Chair Sharp had us change this from how we've done it before is we have listed the new complaints that have come in since the last meeting, which was just 2 weeks ago. You will notice there is a chunk of them that is coming in. And please don't trust my math entirely, but I believe that that is 13 or 14. Between 13 and 14, let's go there. I have 13 written down, but again, I wouldn't trust an attorney's math ever. So anyway, this is how we have chosen or presented it this time. It is slightly different. You can see for most years from 2022 back, we have all of those closed. We have 1 pending from 2023, 5 pending from 2024. In 2025, we have 7, but keep in mind, we've closed 77 of those 2024 complaints, of those 2025 complaints. And then in 2026, many of the new complaints that have come in since July 9th are those that are indicated as pending. So you can see once the commission takes action today, that will clear up much of 2026 complaints. Any questions, comments? I'd love to hear feedback on format. If the commission wants this done differently, we're really trying to figure out a good way to present information to the public and to the commission so that we can demonstrate how we are working through both complaints. We didn't include other filings that have come in. I'm not sure if the commission wants that as well. Just kind of looking for feedback, I guess.
Madam Chair, one question and one comment, please. Does the 38 from 2026 include the 14 new complaints listed below?
Commissioner Hubrights or Vice Chair Hubrights, yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. And then my comment is, this is one of the things, it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. I didn't have an issue with the format that these were presented in before, but I appreciate staff exploring new ways to show the data because this is better, in my opinion. It gives a nice summary of our entire history of complaints. And, I can quickly look at this and say, wow, we have, one complaint going all the way back to 2023, but in the big scheme of things, it looks like we're making really good progress on the complaints that we have. So I appreciate the new format.
Do we have any other comments or questions or suggestions? Well, I too like this format better. I just think it gives us a little more information and makes it make a little more sense to us. So thank you for putting that together.
So Chair Sharp, I think the one, I think you and I had briefly talked about this, is getting this up on the commission's website. That's not something that we currently do, but with utilizing Victoria as a resource, we may be able to do that. I guess I'd love input from the commission if that's something that we could be doing, or if you'd like us to explore that to get it up every month so that the public can see, not including the new complaint information, that may not be possible. But when we have a graphic like this, Victoria has said that she can integrate it. Is that the right word? Okay, thank you. Into the website so that when it updates, it'll automatically update on the website. So just thoughts on that.
Okay, commissioners, what are your thoughts on that, putting it on the website?
Madam Chair, absolutely, I would support that. I think that's a good idea. Obviously, that goes to the transparency that we're all pushing for. And, and just prior to me coming on to this commission, that was one of the talking points I had heard is, a delay with the complaints. And in fact, it was on the questionnaire I had to submit to the selection committee for review. And, and like I will talk about later on, I think when we talk about Michael Bell's show, but what I've seen, and as I've listened to this commission and staff, I think the commission is doing great work on this. So I think this graphic will help the public see that there isn't this huge backlog and there's an explanation for why there is ones that haven't been done yet.
Question for Rebecca. Do we need a motion to do this, or is just something we can just do?
I don't believe we need a
Okay,
motion. I just
great.
wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that the commission was aware and okay with proceeding with that course of action.
Great.
And Victoria will work her magic that I'm completely oblivious to, so. Moving on, we have the communication, education, and outreach update. And I love that I get to share this, not just from me this time, but with additional commissioners who have engaged with this process. So I think I'll turn it over to Commissioner Levin to talk about his. And I can't express enough how nice it is to share this agenda item with others instead of just me. So take it away, Commissioner Levin.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Rebecca. So just a little background, obviously in my daytime job as sheriff, Michael Bell with Dakota Mornings and I have had a relationship. I'm on his show quite frequently just because of my role as sheriff and what's going on in the community. And in our conversations, Michael and he had, after I was selected to this committee, he had told me about his show he had one morning. And so I went back, I think I talked with Logan and Rebecca and listened to it. And, so I thought it was a good opportunity, knowing I would be back on that show at some point. And I just wanted to make sure it was kosher to, be talking about that. So I spoke with Logan and Rebecca, and then they related to you, Madam Chair. And so it was just a good conversation. I think it was an opportunity, obviously not a deep dive into the work of the commission, but an opportunity to give some observations, because everything I said on that radio show, I will stand behind. And basically any things that I had in my mind prior to coming to this commission, and I don't say concerns, I guess just stuff that I had heard. Like I came here and I can't say enough that I think this commission is doing good work, and the staff, everybody works together very well. And I think it's going the right way. And I think good things are going to come with this. So if anybody had any specific questions, I would answer that. If not, I think that's kind of some summarization of what happened.
I'm going to add, I was on schedule to be on that Dakota Morning Show on Thursday, and not last night, but the night before, I got a message that they had to go to some other place on Thursday. So we're going to reschedule, and we haven't finalized the date, but I think it might be next Wednesday. I just have to that's a day that works for me. So I'm going to shoot for next Wednesday. And I think these are really good opportunities to reach out to the public and let them hear what we're doing.
Well, and Madam Chair, if I could just add one more, I can't give Michael Bell kudos enough. One of the things is he has a very fair radio show, and I think it's a good opportunity for this commission to get the message out to the public. Because unfortunately we live in a day when there's an absence of information, valid information. Sometimes people fill it in with false information.
Yeah. I'm going to say, Commissioner Western, do you want to share? I know you had a contact from someone reaching out to you to potentially participate in something. Do you want to mention that?
Sure. Madam Chair, I was invited to be part of the Plain Talk podcast, which is done by Rob Port of Forum Communications. He asked me to be on his show, which was set to tape at 11 o'clock today. I politely declined since we've got a meeting going on, but I said sometime in the future I would love to do that. And I'm sure we'll talk about ethics commission things and, being out there, being transparent, and being out with the public, I think is helpful to dispel misinformation and concerns that may exist. We're out there and people know that we're doing things. And I think that Commissioner Laban and Commissioner Sharp's upcoming and subsequent appearances tell that story as well. We're a public entity and we're accountable to the public. So it's important that we be able to be out there. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. Okay, back to Rebecca.
Yeah, well, thank you. So what I just wanted to give a quick update, and you will get more, the commissioners will learn more about this kind of as we are getting or approaching legislative session, is that Chair Sharp, along with myself and Victoria, are going to be working with OMB's communication team, really not just Victoria, but bringing in a few additional folks to discuss and develop a communication strategy for legislative session. You guys will be getting some documentation that we'll ask you to fill out and get back to us. And you'll get more information on that. I think we're meeting Pam next week, if I remember correctly. Yep. So other than that, I'm going to jump just quickly down to education and outreach, Chair Sharp, if that's okay, before I kick it back over to you for the kind of most important discussion on communication, education, and outreach. And that is that commission staff, we did hold office hours for filers for travel disclosure rules on July 15th. This was our first set of office hours. These office hours are designed to assist with questions in filing. Not necessarily to answer legal questions or provide legal advice, but to answer questions from filers. All questions that we got at that time focused on voluntary compliance with the rules and really filers wanting to ensure that they were doing what was asked of them. We really appreciated those individuals who showed up and had good questions that demonstrated their willingness and desire to be transparent with reporting travel. So some of the questions presented at the office hours related to the definition of public official, we'll talk about that a little bit later, as used in the rule, whether a staff member for a public official can fill out a form. This has been a question that we've gotten on other forms. This is something that the staff, we fill out the forms for our commissioners from time to time. And so we did say that in the affirmative, that is something that staff can do. And then how to address travel that is partially reported in PeopleSoft and partially third-party funded travel. So individuals wanted to make sure that they were complying and including the correct amounts when they did that. We'll discuss more on the definition of public official when we get to item 7, which is our ongoing business. The other note that I want to make, which I did not include in the memo, but as I got an email reminder this morning, I added it to the discussion points I wanted to talk about with the commission, is that COGL is coming up. COGL is the Council on Governmental Ethics Laws. Its conference is coming up in Denver. One of the concerns that I have is that many times we cannot book hotel rooms until we have our registrations in place. Those two things are typically linked. It appears that it is that way again this year, like it was last year in Atlanta. So I would love to get a kind of maybe a rough, I know that I believe that Commissioner Western and Commissioner Hubrights and Commissioner Sharp have all expressed interest in going to this. But if we can get a sense of who we can register, or at least a number of registrants, I would like to move forward with that. Hotel rooms do tend to run out where we are not able to then book hotel rooms. So I do want to move forward with this. We do technically have until October to get it done, but I'm concerned if we wait till that long, we will be staying somewhere else other than where the conference is held. Thankfully, this is a one flight for us. I don't know if this has ever happened in the history of COGL for the North Dakota Ethics Commission, that we have a simple flight to Denver. Flights are running around $500 right now. The other thing I wanted to let you know is one of the concerns that I've had for a while is that Logan and I as staff get all of the emails and correspondence from COGL, but you as commissioners do not typically get that. And I wanted to change that. So I reached out to COGL and learned that we are able to create sub-accounts for all of you to be getting information on the roundtables, the discussions that are happening in between the conferences, and then also for you to have direct access to your registration. So now that we have, we'll wait till we have Lisa's correct email address, but once we do have that, we will get you guys all under a sub-account under the North Dakota Ethics Commission, so you will have access to all of that information instead of me forwarding or providing information, etc. So I guess if people could kind of let me know, the conference is December 6th through the 9th. I don't mean to put you on the spot right now to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but in the next week or so, if you could let me know, just so that we can start that process.
I'd like to jump in there. I went to that conference last year. It was very informative. It just gives you an idea of how much is out there in the ethics space and how different every ethics commission is. And I mean, I would recommend it. I did go last year, so I am perfectly fine sitting out this year, and I'd really like new commissioners to have that opportunity to go. So, I mean, if it works into your schedule, I highly recommend it.
I do intend to attend. I intend on attending, excuse me. I just need to double check with work and family, but I think it should be good.
On that note, Commissioner Sharp, I think I hand it back over to you for our last item on our communication, education, and outreach update.
Last week, Commissioner Hubrights and I had a meeting with Governor Armstrong and his legal counsel, Chris Joseph. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Commissioner Hubrights to share that information.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Like the chair mentioned, the meeting was with Commissioner Sharp, myself, the governor, and his legal counsel. And really, it was really a pretty informal meeting. Chair Sharp started out by thanking the governor for filling out the commission. It's nice to have 5 commissioners now. We discussed recently passed travel rules. We discussed the commission's needs as it pertains to our budget and staff, at least the way that we see them, and that we also intend to submit the 3% reduction like the governor has requested. Generally, we just wanted the governor's office to be aware that we want to keep lines of communication open. Our goal was not to have some, behind the scenes secret meeting, but rather to touch base with their office in good faith. And the governor even offered that if we ever need something from him or want to meet with him, that he would be happy to and actually prefers to do that in one of our open to the public meetings, just to keep things transparent. He'd rather have the conversation out in the open. So, that offer is on the table if we ever wanted to request that of the governor as well. Generally, I thought the meeting went well. It was a strict half-hour meeting, and I thought it went well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. I thought it went well too. And it was, I think it was a really good thing to do. And now I'm tossing it back to Rebecca. Case management system.
Okay, are we ready to review the case management system? So I'm going to give me a moment once again to share my screen. Okay. So I believe everybody online can see this. I think I've made it fairly readable, but this is the statement of work. Some people call this kind of a scope of work for the case management system. I want to be very clear. This is one of 2 proposals that we are getting from NDEC. The second proposal we have not got. That is to go out and have an independent third party, somebody outside of NDEC, create and manage a case management system for the commission. This statement of work I'm presenting or walking you guys through today, this is to have NDEC facilitate or create the case management system using a platform called ServiceNow. So NDEC uses this actually in their dealing with incidents and requests, but we met with them on several occasions to walk through this. So I'm just going to give the commissioners, I want to specifically review the scope. NDEC also presented this to us in 2 phases. Really, this got broke up into 2 phases because the commission needs to decide what it all wants to include. And for budgetary purposes, we only have $50,000 to do this biennium. So then the rest of it would roll into the next biennium. So that is how they split it up. So in your materials, you'll see attachment 3 as ServiceNow phase 1 and attachment 4 is ServiceNow phase 2. So keep in mind, this is one option. I'm not requesting action from the commission today. I do want to get feedback though that I can take back to NDEC. I already have some questions developed and I will talk about those as we walk through this. So the major portion of this scope of work is the scope and the timeline, which is on page 2. But I'm going to walk through really what we have talked about and how we got to this. This is very small, unfortunately, for those people online. I'm going to attempt to make it bigger without distorting it. Okay. So this is the scope that we had talked about. This is the creation of an ethics commission complaint form. This is where it kind of starts. This was the start of our discussion on the North Dakota Gateway. This is an all-encompassing gateway that the state has been working on for a while, I'm going to say, and it allows North Dakotans to use the gateway to do various different things, access the Secretary of State's website, I believe, kind of like a hub that anybody can use. We would then be included on that gateway. So you could go through there and click and file an ethics commission complaint that way. I will note that if you use the gateway, you do need to create a username and password. So there is that slight step, I would say, in order to do that. I also want to be clear that would not be the only way that you could file a complaint. It would just be an additional mechanism to do that. So that's the start that we would do. One of the things that we talked about with NDIT is creating roles within this ServiceNow platform. You can see in there they have an attorney, manager, and case lead. That's how we would, and access would be determined by those roles. We would also then have a complainant role and a respondent role so that you could choose who sees things, etc. So that would then feed into the user permissions, meaning that the complainant would see certain things, the respondent would see certain things, and they could control it that way by assigning a role to whoever is involved in the process. So what this would allow to do in ServiceNow is that you would have somebody who could go in and file a complaint. They can upload documents. They can also view their case status and any filings. Also, anything that has been done within our office that we have chose to upload. And I say that we have chose to put on there. They're not going to be accessing all of our investigative files all the time to see how the investigation is going. I want to make that very clear. That will not be happening. That doesn't happen in other quasi-judicial proceedings. We would not be doing that here. But if we did choose to upload something, it would allow us to very easily share, I'm going to use the word discovery, or documents once they are ready to be shared with either the respondent or another party, etc. So that is something that we can do using this. The other thing is that the respondent will receive notice of a complaint. We can send it out. We can send an email out through ServiceNow that will then go to the respondent. They then can come back and file a response, do a motion to the commission. They can attach documents. And very important to the respondent, this increases transparency, is that they're going to be able to view those case materials that are relevant to their case along the way. So they're going to be able to go in and see things. The Ethics Commission staff, this is really where we're going to be working. We're going to be able to intake and review things. It's going to come in, it's going to send us a notice that it's in there, and this is where we will be working. Currently we use SharePoint. Everything is hand done for our complaints. Currently we use SharePoint. We insert, hand drag and drop everything. This would automatically go into our SharePoint, so it would be there, and they would integrate those two systems. So the other thing I do want to point this out is that here in this particular user permission, meaning Ethics Commission staff, if we were to get a call or if we were to get a complaint that would come in on the hotline, it has the ability for us to create a manual complaint. Currently, we do a memo to file when that happens, and that then becomes the complaint document. This would similarly do that, but that would be a manual entry. It wouldn't automatically filter from the hotline email or from a phone call into ServiceNow. We would do that. We do that now. That process wouldn't change, but it would then assign a case number to it and get the rest of the things going. Case management. This would create an intake queue, the same way that NDIT has an intake queue. at the current stage of what we receive, we may not need this. Where an intake queue could be beneficial and where we could build on it in the future, as we are seeing with the travel disclosure rules, we are getting more of those filings. And so having that intake in service now and then reviewing them before they go up on the website could be helpful in the future. This does not include other forms at this time, but that's something that NDEIT has said if we, are willing to pay for it in the future, we could do that. The big thing that we have asked for and that they have included is the ability to select from a list of notifications, and then it can go out to the parties that we designate. So in ServiceNow, we can upload a file, we can then select who that goes out to instead of sending out individual emails. So right now, an individual, Connor or Addie or Logan or myself will send out an email to the respondent, and then we will send a separate email to the complainant. That email is then saved in the in our SharePoint and docketed with the date. And we include the email and the underlying attachment. So there's a lot of actual maneuvering every time we send something out, because every document typically goes out to 2 people. Sometimes it only goes, and there's different versions that go out to different individuals. So this would allow us to upload a document, click who it goes to, and then it tracks it. So we don't have to then do the manual work on the back end. If we have any case activity, for instance, if it closes, we'll be able to send out notifications as well. There was an aspect that we talked about with NDEIT about using this for investigative purposes and uploading all of our investigative documents. We have chosen not to do that, or we kind of steered away from that. We feel like we have a pretty good process for that, and we also don't want everything as we are doing it to be uploaded into the system. It should be done in a capacity when we're ready for a hearing, when there's been an alleged violation, everything goes out to the respondent. So that's how we would do it. So we will not be including our investigative materials. Let me jump down here. Our investigative materials in ServiceNow until the point that we share that, which we obviously do because of due process, and we would want to do that. But that will not be done. However, what ServiceNow would be able to do is we would be able to receive and securely store documents that come to us from the parties. So if the respondent submits documents, if we get to the hearing stage, what we then do is when the respondent submits documents and a motion, we then email that out to the commissioners. Instead, what would happen is that would come in through ServiceNow, and then you all would get notice that it was there and you can go in and look at it. So it really becomes a central repository for information that's received from what I would call the respondent, or similarly the complainant. The other thing is we would have a dashboard of case metrics that we could then provide to the public. So what we just walked through on the case management, this would be done on a daily or hourly. It's not minute. I've been told that it updates only so frequently, but we would be able to pick, and be able to run those case metrics and then share those publicly. So that also increases transparency. The amount of things that we can do with this that would increase transparency is very positive. Also to save a lot of time on our operations administrator and legal counsel, just with the amount of emails and notifications that go out. There are two questions that I have not got answered from NDEIT, is that we deal heavily with redactions. A lot of documents do have to be redacted. One of the questions that I have for NDEIT that I have not had an opportunity to ask is whether we'd be able to do that within ServiceNow, or whether we'd still be doing that separately and then upload it into ServiceNow. So whether we have that ability. And then there also is in the assumptions, and I need to clarify this with NDEIT, is that the third-party roles won't be able to respond with the portal directly to the case, but earlier in our scope, they say they will. So I think that there's a typo or some information that is not correct there. Any questions? I went through that very quickly. I think it's mostly what we've already talked about publicly within the commission's meetings. I think the biggest thing is just for individuals to know that we're not going to be using it as an investigative, managing our investigations, that we will still use in SharePoint, and we will create our investigative files the way that we always have. And then upload it as, what do we call it? We have a term for it. What was that?
Record.
Yeah, we create a record.
Yeah.
Don't we have a different term for it when we, no, just the record. Okay. That we provide to the respondent. Any questions on the ServiceNow phase 1?
I will wait till you talk through phase 2, and then I have some questions.
So with that, I will move to phase 2 then. So phase 2 is what I would call the public facing side of this case management system. I want to be very clear that this is not the Ethics Commission sharing confidential information or providing information to the public that it's not supposed to. We still will maintain confidentiality. However, the public will be able to see the number associated with a complaint and then be able to see how long it is pending, what potential actions may have been taken, but to a very limited degree. Let me share that new one. So phase 2 really becomes the public facing portal. So on phase 2, there is a much smaller scope. You'll see the case management triage, the case management file creation, those would change slightly. They would become more in-depth processes. This is really just refining what was done in phase 1. But what I really want to focus on is this would really create that public portal access, meaning that you can go and you can see, yes, you won't see a name, you won't see the complainant, the respondent, but you will be able to see a case number, how long it's been pending, the dates that maybe the commission has taken action. You won't know what the action is, but I think that this could serve as dispelling some of the concern that commission is not discussing or talking about or doing things on complaints. The reason this becomes important is there are many times that the commission discusses a complaint in executive session before it ultimately takes action. And so this is a way to be able to do that. Now, NDIT is very aware, as is staff, about the confidentiality and that we need to maintain that, but providing a case number. The other consideration for this is that if the commission opts for an additional investigative mechanism at some point in the future, this could be a way to share that information with the public very easily. We would model this public portal access very similar. What we have given them as an example is the New Mexico system that is very straightforward. And that is what we've used as an example. Please keep in mind, again, I want to emphasize, I don't think I can emphasize this enough. The New Mexico portal does have names, complainants, respondents on there because their confidentiality statutes are different. So please keep that in mind. Yes.
It's resolved.
Yeah.
In New Mexico, the confidentiality lifts, or the processes are different, but the confidentiality sometimes lifts earlier. Theirs are still confidential, but they just have more cases that they've gone through that are now public. So you'll see more public cases when you look at their portal.
That does bring up the good point, though, that once a case becomes public in North Dakota, we can then have it accessible with all of the documents, et cetera, through this portal. Once it potentially becomes public, either through a settlement or through an adjudication with the commission or the courts. So I didn't cover the portion of the statement of work on the first one with the cost. I should have, I apologize. The cost on the first scope of work, which is phase 1, is between 42 and 50,000. Phase 2, I want to double check the number in my head, is between 32 and 37,000. However, I do want to note that there are ongoing costs with phase 1 of approximately $1,100 a month to maintain the license and to maintain our access to ServiceNow. There also certainly would be, no matter what case management system the commission goes with, ultimately having NDIT develop one with ServiceNow or going with a third-party vendor, there is going to be an education, and we're going to have to learn how to use it as staff. So that is going to take more staff resources and more time initially. But ultimately, I think Connor can probably attest to the amount of time it takes sending out all of the emails and redactions and everything. But this would simplify that work, and it would reduce the possibility or the probability of human error that we do experience. None of us are perfect. And we don't expect any of us to be perfect. So that is the summary on phase 2.
Madam Chair. So I just want to wrap my head around the process a little bit. $50,000, we'll just call it roughly for phase 1, $35,000 roughly for phase 2. That's $85,000 cost. Would that be covered in part by our one-time legislative appropriation for $50,000?
So Vice Chair Hubrights, so the $50,000 initially, we have that money in our current budget. So that is already provided for. What we did in the budget request that we made for the 27-29 biennium is we included the ongoing cost of $1,100 per month, because we would need to have that during the 27-29 biennium. And the additional, and I did use the $37,000 number because that was the number NDIT gave us as the high end. And so that is what we requested of the legislature to move forward with phase 2. NDIT is well aware that we need the money. They deal with this frequently, that we need the money from the legislature in order to go through phase 2.
Okay, thank you for that. And the other part of this that we're still waiting on NDIT for is that we still don't know what it would cost for a third party to do the same thing. And so we need them to give us a cost for what it would take to do a request for proposals for private companies to do this same thing. And in those proposals, those private companies would include the cost and the ongoing costs that it would take to maintain a similar platform, correct?
That is all correct.
Just a comment, and this is Jared's opinion. I know NDIT uses ServiceNow. I've never used it. It seems like it can do what we want it to do. I assume it also does other things because it serves all of state government. It probably does things that we don't need it to do. And my sense is that a third party might be able to create a platform that is customized to exactly what we need it to do. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe the fees for that would be so astronomical that we wouldn't be interested, but I think we should still explore what a third party might be able to provide.
Vice Chair Hubrights, I completely agree with that. We need to explore it. It's nice that we have this estimate that we can put in the budget, and I don't know how long it will take to get an estimate for a third party, but I think we wouldn't want to go over the estimate that we're already trying to budget for. So maybe we could save some money. Maybe we could get a better product. I don't know. It's worth exploring.
So for the public and for the commissioners, we are waiting on that third-party private, what it would cost to do that from NDIT. So that is coming. That seems to just be taking a little bit longer than the service now. The other thing I will inform the commissioners of, and this is a discussion prior to all of you being on the commission, which is kind of fun, is that we have requested all of the contracts that New Mexico did when they created their case management system to create a scope of work, to see what they got from their private entity that built their case management system and maintains it. And it is very reasonable. But they had theirs built custom, and they have maintained that with that same company. They have shared all of the contracts, and so we have all of that information. That we also shared that with NDIT to help with this service now, but also to help with an RFP and an request for RFI for that particular project. But we do see what the New Mexico Ethics Commission has done, and we really rely on that or look to that because their complaint process is similar. I don't want to say it's the same because it is not, as Logan has clarified, but really what we're looking for is they have a very simple, straightforward, easy to follow public portal and way that you can go in and click things, and having that would be fantastic. So we're hoping that we could do something similar for the cost that New Mexico did it. Now, keep in mind, New Mexico built their system in 2018. So, 8 years ago, but even considering the cost of inflation and additional maybe complications that we have with our complaint system, it still would be a very reasonable cost.
Rebecca, are you aware, like with this one, New Mexico, and thank you for the information because, I come from the other side of the scope, and sometimes when we go outside, we end up with a system that maybe would work in a big state, but might not be applicable to us. And so I'm glad, like, we have the New Mexico example. Has that company since gone out and like marketed it to other commissions? Are you aware? Or, and I guess what I'm getting at is sometimes somebody's the guinea pig and then everybody else pays for the work.
Commissioner Lieben, that is a great question. And I say that because at Kogel, Logan and I have both participated in, I want to call them education forums, where there's discussions of case management systems. And the costs that we have heard coming out of Kogel are significantly higher than what they've done in New Mexico, hence why we looked to New Mexico. The case management system used by the New York Ethics Commission, the Texas Ethics Commission, those larger states that have a more significant scope of work and more complaints on a just timely basis or on a daily basis, right? Those systems are much more in depth. I would compare those to, not quite our Secretary of State filing system that we use in our state, but something similar. We looked to what would be similar to us. The company that did the New Mexico one has not marketed it to anybody else. I'm not going to get the word correctly, but a special build or Jared, you probably know the word in your, but like it was custom built, right? Like I think of a custom built house. That's what it was for them, based on their laws and rules that they have there. If we were to go out and I do get calls from other case management systems that are used by larger states, but it feels very overbroad for what we need. So great question.
And I do like if I can continue, Madam Chair, I love the public portal part. When you showed the new display of the cases and where they're at, in the back of my mind, that was one of my concerns is, okay, those, like that case from 24, what's the status of it? But then the reassurance from potentially this program, I think is outstanding that people would be able to go in and see at least from 30,000 feet what's been happening with these cases. So it's not a question of they're kind of just lost somewhere in the system.
Great discussion. Anything else on that, Rebecca?
I don't think so, other than I'm not requesting any action or for the commission to move forward with this because I do think we need to have, as Chair Sharp and Vice Chair Hubrights have said, we need to get the outside quote. Once I have that, I will present it to the commission as soon as I have it.
Okay. Okay, then moving on to the travel disclosure rule discussion.
Chair Sharp, do you want me to introduce this one?
Would you please?
Yep.
Thank you.
So as the commission is well aware, the travel rules have been effective since July 1st. So we are a whole whopping 22 days into this rule. You can see that there have been numerous travel disclosures forms that have been filed with the commission to date. Some of these individuals are pre-filing them before they even go on trips, which is, I'm going to call it like bonus transparency, which is great. But we have had some, what I'm going to call clarifying points that have developed since the effective date that we as staff would like to get the commission's input on, potentially direction. And I don't want to call these issues, but things that have come to our attention. And with any new thing that rolls out, there are going to be tweaks that need to be made. I do want to also, before we get into these very specific things, there have been a few notes on the form that have been brought to us where there needs some clarification. So we will work with Victoria to provide either little comment boxes that can populate when somebody is looking for a definition. For instance, the definition of funding source seems to be giving some people, tripping up some people. The other one is the inclusion of family members. We only want that counted when those family members are being paid for. That is not specified on the form. We are meeting with Victoria this afternoon to give her that input so she can change that on the form. The good thing is that we do have an online form. It is easily changeable and we can provide more information to help filers. I really also want to say to the public, thank you for providing feedback on the form. That is helpful for us. As you know, we work with the language all the time. So of course we know what it means. So when we get public information that they have a question on what something means and they need clarification, that is helpful. We have already done that, I think, one other time before the form went live. We got feedback from our educational or the webinars that happened. So please know that we are taking that feedback and hoping to include clarifying information on the form. So as far as what I would call more substantive clarifications that are needed that have arisen, I have two on the memo to the commission. One is the definition of public official. So the definition of public official as used in the travel disclosure rule is from Article 14 of the Constitution. So Article 14 of the Constitution defines public official. It is in there. That is where public official, that term has come from. We have translated that into the Century Code, into the Commission's rules. And the Commission staff has received several questions about the phrase appointed official and what it means. There appears to be different interpretations about what the term or the phrase appointed official means. The commission has interpreted the phrase appointed official in the complaint process frequently. I will hand it over to Logan to walk through that. We really interpret this to mean an individual who is, quote, appointed to their position based on either constitutional, statutory, or rule-based authority. We've addressed this question of whether executive branch employees are appointed in the complaint process on numerous occasions. I don't want to say dozens, but it's been frequent. Some individuals, however, interpret the phrase appointed official to mean only individuals who are appointed by the governor. So there seems to be some inconsistency. So to assist filers in determining whether they are appointed, commission staff created an FAQ. You will see the FAQ included in your memo that we have to describe the current process for determining whether somebody is appointed. However, staff recommends that we do more to provide some clarity on the definition of this phrase, specifically for filers, whether to indicate whether they need to file or not. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Logan to walk through kind of how we have done it in the complaint process and how we would similarly do it here to make that determination. And then really we'd like to get some guidance from the commission on this.
Thanks, Rebecca. And I hope the FAQ there walks through it pretty succinctly, but this is the position the commission's taken on the term, well, an appointed public official in Article 14 when it's come up in the complaint process. And it's really informed how we look to whether somebody's appointed when those issues do come up, when it's not necessarily clear. But what we do is we start with a request to HRMS for a list of people in the agency that are appointed. We've learned that that's not always going to be dispositive because it's usually based on whether the person's classified or not classified, and then they kind of assign the term appointed to that individual's position. But then if you actually look through the Century Code, it's not so much rule-based, but usually in the Century Code, when the legislature has created different positions across state government, it'll say the elected official may appoint a deputy, or the elected official may appoint somebody to serve in a specific position. And there will be a statute that uses the word appoint or appointed, some version of the word appoint. So it's become a very plain language interpretation that we'll start with HRMS, but if that's not giving us the answer necessarily, we'll go out and we'll do additional research to determine whether that person's appointed or not. Sometimes it's not really clear whether a person's appointed, but that's why we do a review and request information and look through the Century Code to try and figure that out. Oh, yes, that's a good point. Rebecca's telling me to mention the different capacities that sometimes people serve in. So I don't really have a good example, but I'll talk. I'll just talk in general terms that sometimes somebody's employed in a day-to-day position, but then they will be also appointed to serve in some advisory capacity on an advisory committee or on a board or commission. So you have to look to what hat the person's wearing at the time the facts alleged in the complaint are taking place. So whether they're serving in their appointed capacity or whether they're serving in their day-to-day employee capacity, that's also an issue that comes up.
So I think from a staff perspective, what we are looking for from the commission is whether as staff we should work to clarify this more. This is certainly murky. For some individuals, they may not know that they are appointed, or they may have a different interpretation, as was discussed. And so the question that we have for the commission today is the FAQ sufficient, or are there additional steps that staff should take to help with this clarifying point on who should be filing the form and who does not need to be filing the form? I think I will leave it at that.
Okay, I'll ask for any thoughts by the commissioners. And I will say, I know, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and it likely would be kind of a project to figure out, to go through all that stuff, but it certainly might be well worth it. But I'm open to thoughts and suggestions.
And Madam Chair, I think what you're referencing is it would be nice to have a list of everyone who needs to, or of everyone who is considered an appointed official. I don't know how much work that would entail. Maybe that would create other issues for the commission, but right now it seems to be creating some confusion. And I don't have an answer, but I mean, I think we should consider beginning a list of people who we think are appointed officials, or we consider appointed officials.
And I agree with Commissioner Hubright's. And I don't know an easy way to do this, and I commend you guys because I think you've done a great analysis of it and a deep dive. You know, because how far do you get into it with, you know, and I guess what I look at is, with my limited experience, what influence does that person have in state government? And you bring up a valid point. When you're a hired employee, which I would say doesn't, you know, fall under the travel rules, that's up to the agency administrator, elected or appointed. But all of a sudden they are put onto a committee or a board that does have policy making authority, that has influence in state government. And so I kind of echo what Jared said. I don't know the easy answer to this. I think obviously the low hanging fruit would be very easily identifiable. But then when you get on some of these other hidden boards and commissions, I think that could get difficult but beneficial.
Thank you. And I have a question. If we had a list of everyone the Ethics Commission thought based on whatever criteria, is that legal advice to put a list out there?
No, it would be the position of the commission that, in our view, these are the appointed officials that we have authority over.
Thank you.
And maybe just to add on to what Commissioner Lieben said, I agreed, you know, how deep do we go on this? And maybe a thought would be to create a list of everyone who is an appointed official based on the plain language use of the word appoint, appointed, appointing, appoints, whatever other conjugations of that verb there are. And then the commission can look at that and say, okay, these group of people seems appropriate. This group of people is, maybe we're not sure, you know, we can have that conversation, but it would be nice to have a comprehensive list, or as close as we can get to comprehensive, in front of us to have that conversation.
Madam Chair, is there a list of, like, is there one list of every board and commission of state government?
There's a list of every board and commission. I think there's also a list of everybody that serves on it. The harder part is going to be, well, is their staff appointed? Because we've seen where some boards and commissions will have an appointed executive director, like Rebecca, but some will just say in the Century Code, the board may employ an executive director. So then the conclusion we've been drawing there is, well, they're not appointed because it doesn't use that terminology. So that, I think, not the people appointed to the boards, that would be pretty easy, I believe. It's going to be the staff that serves those boards and commissions that's going to be the harder call when we look at them.
So how would we evaluate whether those individuals should be included or not? Would it be by a review of the Century Code or the rules?
Yes. When we talk about a list, that's what I think the project would be. It would be a research project of every agency and then board and commission's piece of the Century Code, and whether it delineates who is and isn't appointed within those agencies and boards and commissions.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking.
Just mentioned to Pam, that maybe sounds like a project for one or more of the interns to work on while we still have them. It seems like that might be time consuming, but that's why we have interns.
I actually had Connor start going through the century code and doing a keyword search for appointed or one of those words. So we've done some of the research already, but it would be a project that as general counsel, I would love to have intern help on if we're going to do it.
Madam
Go
Chair,
ahead.
one last question. And so when it says employ, but I would look and say an executive director of a board has authority. Now I get the language variation, but I still like I would struggle. We have an executive director of this board that is employed, and then this one's appointed. I almost think it has to go by pay grade isn't the correct terminology, but what influence do they have in state government? Can that person?
What authority?
Yes, positional authority. I think, and is that something? And don't shoot me for saying this. Is this something like we could look legislatively to define, or is this something we would think should stay with this commission?
Well,
And you don't have to answer.
I think that this is why it's good that there are a lot of lawyerly type people who are part of this commission. I think that Commissioner Laban raises an important question, which is, does the Ethics Commission decide over whom it has authority, or is the language of the Constitution dispositive? And I think what Commissioner Laban is asking for, and we're getting ahead of ourselves because we agree that staff should create a list, but the question is, should there be a bright line rule that if someone is a executive director of a board, of which there are dozens and dozens, should that be considered an appointed official for the purposes of ethics commission oversight and for the purposes of filing? At first blush, I think that a bright line rule makes sense. I know that that's not on the floor, but I think we're thinking through and brainstorming and analyzing the issue. It seems to me that if Board A has an employed executive director and Board B has a appointed executive director, there's a rule of statutory construction that provides that the legislature doesn't seek that something has an absurd result. And I can't pull the statute off the top of my head, but I think that our goal is to be consistent and transparent so that the individuals over whom we believe we have oversight know that we have oversight, and there's this set expectation. I realize that I'm not sure that this moves the conversation forward, but maybe it clarifies what Commissioner Laban is getting at. And I agree that we start with a list, then we have to analyze, okay, how many executive directors are there that are considered employed? What distinction, if any, is there? And then we come to a consensus and make a determination of what, if anything, the bright line rule ought to be. But that's where my head is at right now, and I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Western. Anyone else? Any other comments? Right. It sounds like it sounds like everyone is supportive of the idea of having a research project that will somehow put some kind of a list together. And then maybe at that point, we need to analyze it some more, but wherever that project goes.
Madam Chair,
Sounds good.
is that something you guys, as the day full-time dealing with this, is that something you would see beneficial?
Absolutely. I think it would cut down on the time for initial reviews of complaints when that's a question. So I do see it as beneficial. And I can guarantee Chair Sharp that there will be nuances to it that we're going to bring to you because it's come up in complaints where it's been like, oh, really? This this person's maybe appointed. So I think it'll be an interesting project.
I have another thought, suggestion, and perhaps this is the step after the development of a list, but another option out there for particularly large agencies or entities over whom we have governance, correspondence with either the head person or liaison saying, we understand that there may be questions about over whom travel rules are applicable in your agency. And then we both present, this is our list. And if you disagree, what is the basis or who or how do you believe that this is incorrect, so that there's ongoing communication with the particular agency or entity over whom we have governance. I yield.
Commissioner Western, I really appreciate that input. So from a staff perspective, I see this as a essentially three-part project. And so step one will be creating the list. Mm-hmm. Two is reaching out to agencies that we do have questions on, particularly maybe they have something in their office that we are unaware of, that we do need to be aware of. And then coming to the commission, having that information, having input. I think receiving input from agencies is extremely helpful. And they can also help us understand the authority that individuals within their office may have, which will help then with step three, which is that legal analysis that may happen once this is done. Commissioner Western, does that succinctly articulate, or is that the direction that I have written down for what you have proposed and what the other commissioners have proposed as well?
Yes. Yes.
And I would agree with that. I think you said it very well. You condensed it very well. So then I know we don't need a motion, but we're all agreeing that that's a project you should move forward with. Thank you.
So just for the commission's benefit, I do want to point out this will be time consuming. However, this is one of those areas where it will be a time-consuming project at the beginning, but we will see the benefits for years to come, whether it is in when people call our office and we will able to quickly be able to say, here's the list, and this is what you do. It will pay dividends on the back end. So consider it an initial investment, and then it will pay off in the very long run. But also one of the concerns or one of the issues that we do run into frequently in initial reviews is figuring out whether somebody is appointed, particularly if we are determining a capacity issue. And one of the things that I think Logan maybe downplayed is how often he goes back and forth with agencies to determine whether somebody is appointed. There is many times a substantive or significant exchange of understanding the role of somebody. So if we could do that on the front end, then that would also help our complaint process move more quickly on the back end. Also, another point is that this also would increase transparency and ensure that people know that they're under the commission's jurisdiction. So overall, I just want to emphasize this will be time consuming. However, I think Connor I reviewed his stuff. I think he got a pretty good start on it already. And we will have faith in Ashley for a significant time.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
if I might, I just wanted to weigh in on, it's hard to participate remotely, but
Yep.
I concur in all those comments. I think this issue, to follow up on Executive Director Binstock's comments, this issue touches so much of what we do, both in the complaint process and in the rulemaking capacity. And I think it's such a central issue that it will increase the credibility of what this group does. It'll streamline the process. So I wholeheartedly support it and understand that it's going to be time consuming, but agree that the dividends it will pay both in efficiency and in public confidence and the confidence of those that are subject to our jurisdiction is well worth it.
Thank you, Commissioner Edison Smith. Appreciate that. I
Chair,
think,
if you want me to move to
you go
the
ahead
next
to the next. Yep.
the next consideration or clarifying point that needs to be made. This is also a significant or a substantive issue that I want to bring to the commission's awareness during our discussions with executive directors. And I really want to thank the executive directors from the boards and commissions who have come and spoke with us about this issue. We have learned as staff that many boards and commissions do not have access to PeopleSoft for accounting purposes, and their spending is therefore not tracked in the state checkbook. If you remember, and I realize that some of you are new, so I will kind of give a historical overview. The idea of the travel disclosure rules is to ensure that the public has information to travel information that is not otherwise easily publicly available. And when we did our research, we found that typically things are done in PeopleSoft. Even when individuals may not be aware that it is being done in PeopleSoft, it is done in PeopleSoft and then filtered into the state checkbook or through the legislative forms that are submitted for travel reimbursement. What we have learned, however, is that there is a significant group, particularly boards and commissions, that don't have access to PeopleSoft. I don't have the answer to why that is. Our former OMB director likely does, so I can turn the mic over to her.
I do have the answer to that because I was part of that implementation for PeopleSoft, but it's simply that when PeopleSoft was rolled out, it was rolled out to state agencies and the university system. It didn't go beyond, it didn't go beyond agencies and the university system. And the rationale behind that was because they didn't receive any appropriations from the legislature or any state money. Boards and commissions raise, I don't know, fees and license fees and that kinds of things. So, and there wasn't, if I recall, a big cry for them to be part of it. So it just never was included in the initial part of it because they're not agencies.
Well, thank you. So the issue that we have run into is that within the definition of travel, third-party funded travel within the rule, it does include travel paid for by the state. But the exemptions that are outlined below that in the rule include when it is tracked in PeopleSoft. There was an assumption that that would then include the per diems, et cetera, travel reimbursements to regular board meetings and regular meetings for commissions and boards. However, we have now learned additional information. And so the question that we have for the commission is, how do we address that? I want the commission to keep in mind, there is not a central repository in the state system for all of that per diem or travel that is paid to boards and commissions, the same way we have that with the legislative branch and with anyone who uses PeopleSoft can go in and use the state checkbook to show that. That is not similarly available for boards and commissions. So what is currently happening, and you can go online and see it in the travel disclosure rules, is that boards and commissions, individuals who serve on boards and commissions for a regular meeting, when they get a per diem or a travel reimbursement, they are going and entering that because it is technically third-party funded travel, and there is not an exemption or an exception for that. So the question that we have for the commission is whether they want that type of travel to be reported, or if we should amend the rule, or there are maybe some other options, but to include that as an exception to the filing requirement. That is what we are presenting to the commission today. It's a policy question for you guys to do. We do have the ability to amend the rule. We have waited on the general administration rules for the rulemaking process. We have not moved forward with those yet. The reason is because we didn't want to have so many rules going on at one time, and the travel rules were significant. So we could potentially combine those and do that together with that, just to save some money and resources. But I'd really love to get input from the commission.
Thoughts from commissioners?
To me, Madam Chair, to me, this is a technicality, and seems like those specific costs that fall under the technicality should be exempted.
So it seems like, well, those are employer reimbursed costs. So yeah, that's, and for purposes of third-party travel, we don't want employer costs. I mean, it really comes down to that. They're reporting employer costs that we didn't want them to report, instead of, you know, someone who's not connected with their board.
I'm inclined to agree with Commissioner Hubrights and the chair. It seems to me, and I'll admit that I voted against the travel rule when it came up several months ago, and the core of my disagreement was simply how far is and how far should the regulated community be for achieving the purpose of the rule. And I think that that's something we're working through as we speak. If you're on the state barber board, that's my pet one to bring out, and you receive a reimbursement from the state of North Dakota for the purposes of traveling to your state barber board meeting, it seems to me that holding an expectation that you report your travel reimbursement from the state of North Dakota for the purposes of public transparency is overkill. And I am certainly inclined to agree that I don't think that that's consistent with the purpose of this, which is to create transparency, but how much transparency is appropriate in these circumstances. I yield.
Any other comments? Rebecca, how do we proceed with this?
So I think what the commission could do today is direct council to draft, or to, and I'm looking to Logan if he's good with that, to draft something that would change that to ensure that that is included in the exception. And then we would go through the amendment or the rulemaking process to change that. I'm not sure if he has any recommendations in the interim on how to address that. I do want to just give a brief historical perspective that the inclusion of the exception for PeopleSoft was meant to address this very issue, that we didn't want things reported twice, or regular course of business where you're receiving travel reimbursements to be coming in. That was the discussion early, I want to say before y'all joined the commission. So that was the discussion on PeopleSoft. We didn't get the feedback that would not cover this sort of thing in the rulemaking process.
I don't have an interim suggestion. The rule is the rule as it's currently drafted, so we follow the rule as it is. But I will draft a proposed amendment to fix it in line with your discussion. And then Rebecca said the general administration rules, we haven't sent out the rulemaking notice, so we could likely include this as well and save some money to do it in the short term and get it changed here.
I think that sounds perfect. Does everyone agree that's the direction we should go? Okay. I'm not hearing any objections, so thank you. Next on the agenda is the discussion of the Citizens Alliance of North Dakota versus Wrigley. My understanding is there is no new information for this, so I think we don't need to have a discussion. And as you will see in our memo, and we've talked about before, the Executive Director Ben Stock and the Ethics Commission has been we've been dismissed from the complaint. It's still ongoing with Julie Lawyer, and as far as we know, we're out. Nothing new has happened in the meantime, so I think we'll move on to our next agenda item, of which is advisory opinion requests 2607 and 2609. And I don't know, Rebecca or Logan, I don't know which one of you is going to handle this one.
I can take it, Chair.
Thank you.
You'll see in the memo the request for advisory opinion policy. That's just the commission's standard operating procedure or policy for how we handle requests when they come in, because we need to address them within 14 days. Well, between commission meetings, that's 30 days usually. So we have to respond to them in a shorter time frame. So what we do is the executive director consults with the chair on whether the commission is going to issue an advisory opinion. There have been requests where we've pulled them back after that affirmative, yes, we'll provide an opinion has gone out. And that's usually because facts have changed or the circumstances have changed in some form. But with that, we have two advisory opinions on the agenda today. One you have a draft of, and that's for advisory opinion request 2607. This request was received back in April from Representative Kathy Freilich. The request relates to an out-of-state event, and at the time that was Chair Lindquist who consulted with Rebecca to determine whether the commission would issue the opinion, and that was a yes. So today we have the draft, and I believe it's not due till mid-August, but the event in question is occurring here in a couple weeks. So that's why we got it ready for today's agenda. I don't know if you or Connor, Rebecca, want to bring up the draft. I'll walk through it briefly. And this is attachment 6 to the meeting memo. Please jump in at any time too if you have questions as I walk through it. So you'll see here on the first page, the request is for a trip that is in part sponsored by the Council of State Governments. The Council of State Governments is an organization the Legislative Assembly pays membership dues to. The Assembly itself is a member and receives member benefits in response to paying the dues and being a member. The nuance with this opinion, if you look in the materials that are provided, that it's not solely the Council of State Governments, but it's also it's a different organization that the Council of State Governments is part of that is the main sponsor, and that's Cape Youth. And the factual background goes into this, but the Cape Youth organization it's a consortium of multiple different organizations. And if you look through it, they're research organizations, they're universities. But the main thing is with Cape Youth is that it's funded by the federal government. So with that in mind, the details of the event break up who is paying for the event for her attendance. And the Council of State Governments is funding the hotels, but then the other details are Cape Youth is funding the transportation to the event, which is in Denver. So with that in mind, we go into the legal background, the commission, or the Article 14 and the commission's lobbyist gift rules, which may apply to the analysis. And then out-of-state events, the commission had a pretty extensive advisory opinion back in 2023 dealing with out-of-state events. And then we added a new section in here, which is new for this advisory opinion because the travel disclosure rules went into effect on July 1st. And again, the main goal here is keeping in mind that the legislative report on out-of-state meeting form is exempted when they report it through that channel from reporting with the commission. There's no questions on the legal background. I'll jump into the analysis that we've completed. So when we get these questions, there's two questions the commission has to answer: whether the travel reimbursement is a gift, and if it is a gift, was it given by a lobbyist in conjunction with lobbying? So we break it up in those two parts. The big piece here in the first part, whether it's a gift, the Legislative Assembly is paying. I don't know the exact number. The Legislative Council has told us before roughly what they pay CSG, the Council of State Governments, to be a member, but they do pay a substantial membership fee. And the way we've analyzed it is, well, that fee is coming back to you in the form of your membership benefits. So in some form, you're paying already on the front end for that travel when you're invited to these events. So the analysis is there, well, you're paying for it. That's a fair market consideration because you've already exchanged the money. It's now just coming back in the form of your legislators being invited to attend these events. So that takes care of the hotel reimbursement issue, but that's not a gift because you're paying for it. But then we get to the Cape Youth piece of it, and it was unclear to us, and we don't believe it's the case, that the Legislative Assembly is paying dues to this specific organization. Their website says that they're funded by the federal government. So they're not paying dues. So that's a little less clear there what the transportation, and we kind of, I don't want to say avoid the issue, we address it, but we say the second question deals with it more on point, and that's whether lobbying will occur at the working group event. So the second piece goes into that analysis. When you look at the organization, the Legislative Assembly is a member of, and then their affiliates, because CSG is very closely affiliated with Cape Youth. The Legislative Assembly does not pick partisan organizations to become a member of. It's very research, council type organizations where it's multiple states. It's similar to our Kogel conference, where it's a consortium of many different states that are part of these organizations. And that really informed the analysis we did here, that this is a research event for legislative members to learn, to propose different issues in their working groups and come to solutions across many states. So that's the analysis, that it's research oriented and that it's not lobbying under B there. So with that in mind, the conclusion is yes, you may accept the funding to attend the event. And then we wanted to add C, where this is reported, because it is, again, a legislator, and keeping in mind that the travel rules exempt things that are reported on the Legislative Assembly's form, that the commission does not receive those filings unless it's not reported to the Legislative Assembly. And this one's a little unclear because you have the membership organization paying part of it, but you also have the Cape Youth paying another piece of it. If you look see here. We put in there's a newsletter from Legislative Council, how they've updated their policy where things are partially funded by these membership organizations, that the Legislative Assembly is going to try and track that information so the legislators don't have to report things twice. So they really just want to get everything on their form. So we believe it will be reported on their form. The representative will likely have to check with Legislative Council, but in the event it's not, then that's something that we would receive. So it's kind of a wishy-washy answer there, but that's on the legislator to check with Legislative Council where they should report it. And I think they'll get better guidance from them anyway. So the conclusion is, yes, it's permissible to accept the travel reimbursement for this event. Questions?
I don't think there are any questions. Move along. Thank you.
Logan, Chair Sharp, can I just?
Yes.
Logan, can you walk the commission through just what you did as far as contact with Legislative Council, as far as this advisory opinion, just to kind of give a, we understand that this could be applicable to other organizations that the Legislative Assembly does pay dues to, such as NCSL and Energy Council. And so I just want Logan to just inform the commission about what he did on that front.
Yeah, so when we initially approached this advisory opinion, we thought it was going to be a clean cut. CSG is funded by the Legislative Assembly, therefore you've already paid what's coming back to you in the form of reimbursement. So we thought the advisory opinion could just take an approach of, well, here's the list of organizations the Legislative Assembly is paying to go to these events. And then just be like a generic advisory opinion that when these organizations offer you travel, that's completely acceptable. I think we could still do that. The Cape Youth piece added some nuance to it, but what we did, and I don't want to put blame on anybody at all, because I gave them a short time frame. I reached out to Legislative Council maybe a week ago and asked for a list of those organizations, and they're working on compiling it. I just don't have it yet, and I think workloads are what they are. So I assume we'll get that at some point. And I don't know if we want to maybe come back and amend this advisory opinion to add that in. Maybe even after the event occurs, we could do that. That might be an option. Or we could just create a policy document if we want to, saying these are the organizations, and just publicize it somewhere that the Legislative Assembly pays dues to. So we have options with what we could do with that list, but I think it'll be helpful for legislators when they're asked to attend events.
Thank you. So Chair Sharp, we will need a motion to approve of the advisory opinion and then to publish it on the website.
Okay.
And it is prepared for your signature,
Okay.
if you notice, as the new chair.
I'll entertain a motion for approval of advisory opinion request 2607.
Madam Chair, I move that draft advisory opinion 2607 be approved by the commission, that the correspondence be issued, and that the advisory opinion be made public as drafted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion on this? If none, Connor, will you take the roll?
Chair Sharp,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieben,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Aye.
and Commissioner Edison Smith.
Aye.
The motion passes. Moving on to our next item, item 9 is legal discussion on receipt of information containing evidence of ethics violation. We will need a motion to enter into, yes? Oh, we have the other one. I'm sorry. Yes. I thought we were done. No. Logan, back to you, 2609.
Yeah, and we could have skipped over it. It's just a notification to the commission that we received another request from the North Dakota Hospital Association. And that relates to providing, I think it's a plaque to legislators who were unable to attend an event. So Rebecca consulted with Chair Sharp and we notified the association that we'd be issuing an opinion on that one.
Okay. And we have 90 days to issue that opinion, is that correct?
Yep, 90 days from when the letter
From
went out.
last
So
week, okay,
a few less, but we'll get it done.
thank you. Okay, now we're on to number 9, and I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session for attorney consultation.
Madam Chair, I motion to enter executive session pursuant to North Dakota Century Code Sections 44-04-19.1 and 44-04-19.2 for the purpose of attorney consultation regarding actions available to the commission relating to receipt of information containing evidence of ethics violations and on the legal risks, strengths, and weaknesses of proposed actions of the commission regarding the information which, if held in public, would have an adverse fiscal effect on the commission.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Laban. Any discussion? Connor, will you take the roll call vote?
Chair Sharp,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieben,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Aye.
Commissioner Edison Smith.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. The commission has approved a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of attorney consultation regarding a legal discussion on the receipt of information containing evidence of ethics violations. The legal authority for closing this portion of the meeting is NDCC sections 4409-19.1 and 4404-19.2. The executive session will be recorded and all members of the governing body are reminded to limit their discussion during the executive session to the announced topic. Any collective decision, collective commitment, or final action by the governing body must occur after it reconvenes in an open meeting. The prohibition on taking final action during the executive session does not apply to providing guidance or instructions to our attorney. We'll now ask the members of the public who are attending the meeting to leave the meeting. We anticipate adjourning the executive session and reconvening the open portion of the meeting in approximately 20 minutes. The minutes will show that the executive session began at 10:50 and was attended by, it will be all 5 commissioners. We have completed our executive session, and I'll make note that we have returned at 11:14. All commissioners are back and present. There will be no motions made from the previous executive session that we had. Moving on to the next item. The next item on the agenda is complaint numbers 23-014, 24-008, 24-013, 24-015, 24-013, 24-035, 26-025, 26-026, 26-027, 26-028, 26-029, 26-030, 26-031, 26-032, 26-033, 26-034, 26-035, 26-036, 26-037, and 26-038, hereinafter referred to as the complaints. This item must be discussed in an executive session. The legal authority for closing this portion of the meeting is Century Code 546612-1, 546612-3, 4404-19.21. The topic or purpose of this executive session is discussion on the complaints. Information regarding the content and parties to an executive commission complaint is confidential. As a complaint must be discussed in executive session, no motion is needed to enter executive session. The executive session will be recorded and all members of the governing body are reminded to limit their discussion during the executive session to the announced topic. Any collective discussion, collective commitment, or final action by the governing body must occur after it reconvenes in an open meeting. The prohibition on taking final action during the executive session does not apply to providing guidance or instructions to our attorney. We'll now ask the members of the public who are attending the meeting to leave the meeting. Again, we anticipate adjourning the executive session and reconvening the open portion of the meeting at approximately 12 o'clock. So, okay, the minutes will show that the executive session began at 11:17 and was a 10. Oh, I'm sorry, that is for afterwards. We're now going into executive session at 11:17. The minutes will show that the executive session was adjourned at 11:59. The public has been invited to return to the meeting and we're now back in open session. At this time, I will entertain any motions.
Madam Chair, I move to summarily dismiss complaint numbers 26025 through 26034 for lack of subject matter jurisdiction and insufficiency to identify a possible violation.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Connor, will you take the roll, please?
Chair Sharp,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieben,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Aye.
and Commissioner Edison Smith.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. Do we have another motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we summarily dismiss complaint numbers 26-035 and 26-036 for lack of personal jurisdiction.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Connor, will you take the roll?
Chair Sharp,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieben,
Abstain due to conflict.
Commissioner Western,
Aye.
and Commissioner Edison Smith.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. Do we have another motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to summarily dismiss complaint number 26-037 for failing to comply with the commission's complaint rules.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Connor, will you take the roll?
Chair Sharp,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieben,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Abstain as recused.
and Commissioner Edison Smith.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. Do we have another motion?
Madam Chair, I move to summarily dismiss complaint number 26-038 for being insufficient to identify a possible violation and failing to comply with North Dakota Century Code 54-66-051.
I second the
sec-
motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. And Jared, please take the roll. Jared, I'm sorry. Connor, please take the roll.
Chair Sharp,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hubrights,
Aye.
Commissioner Lieben,
Aye.
Commissioner Western,
Aye.
and Commissioner Edison Smith.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That has completed our agenda. And so unless there is anything else, which there isn't, this meeting is adjourned.